In conventional on-farm testing, relatively few farmers often evaluate a relatively large number of varieties, making the task difficult for farmers, often resulting in unreliable data that are not representative enough. In order to deal with this bottleneck, a new approach known as triadic comparison of technologies, Tricot is becoming more popular in doing on-farm testing of new varieties that are bred by breeders. This kind of approach ensures that many farmers are engaged, and each individual farmer gets to evaluate only 3 varieties in their own field. It does not mean that with Tricot, only 3 varieties can be evaluated at once. What it does is that each farmer gets to test a different combination of 3 varieties from the total number of varieties that will be evaluated. Tricot, therefore, is an incomplete block design to on-farm testing. By combining the evaluations of all the farmers, the total number of varieties can be ranked from better to worse. Tricot is a comparative approach where farmers compare each of the 3 varieties at different growth time of the plant up to the processing into food products. At each time point, farmers will indicate which of the 3 varieties is the best and which one is the worst, which automatically places the 3rd variety in between the other 2. This comparison is done by an overall assessment of the plant, but also for specific traits that are known to be important for farmers. Furthermore, each of the 3 varieties is compared to the favorite variety the farmer is already using. Farmers, through lead farmers, communicate the evaluation to researchers via mobile phones and as well upload the data directly using the ODK mobile phone application. In Nigeria, the joint Cassava breeding program, led by International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA, and National Root Crops Research Institute, NRCRI, have been implementing and further developing the Tricot method together with the inventors of Tricot.
We have interval visits to the fields and to the lead farmers to ensure that they comply to standard. They comply to what they are supposed to be doing. And also, these our lead farmers have been trained in the use of smartphones, using the ODK to get our information. They are quite trained in that aspect. And going further also, we have also exposed some of our lead farmers into some other trainings.
The objective of Tricot project is to come up with an improved way of doing on-farm testing for variety release. But Tricot has different applications. It can be used for that, but it can also be used early on in the breeding program, and it can also be used after varieties have been released to see which varieties are the most suitable for whom, for which people, giving their social dimensions, but also in which regions.
Tricot therefore respects and taps into the large experience of farmers and processors that is often tacit and difficult to obtain through surveys. The simple and concrete evaluation, where each individual farmer chooses the best and the worst variety at different time points after planting, makes it possible to get feedback from many farmers. This is essential to get representative data to inform the development and release of a new variety in order to optimize the chance that the variety will be adopted.
These 3 types, I noticed the growth rate is very rapid. I noticed the 2 of them are very tolerable. You cannot see the trace of any CMD or mosaic on them.
From the numerics, talking about the numbers that were brought to us, 3, we just do a very simple comparison because we are comparing 3 things here, A, B, and C. So with that, it wasn't that laborious for us to identify the one that is the best in terms of germination, energy, in terms of growth, in terms of vigor, in terms of yield, in terms of better product at the end of the day. So the strategy that Tricot employ is the best strategy. Selecting one that is the best is not an issue. From what we have in the field, one can close his eyes to pick the one that is the best without too much of a stress.
It's obvious. Right now, we don't say that it's only the breeders that are selecting. Now we are listening to the users, we are listening to the owners, we are listening to our clients. Our clients are the farmers. We are listening to our clients are the processors. So they participate in selecting the varieties that are more suitable to them. So it's no longer the breeder selecting for the farmer, it's the farmer selecting for himself, or the processor selecting for himself in the whole process. And when they select it, the gain is that there is more acceptability, and the likelihood for that variety to eventually be successful after we release it in the market space is very high. And that's our target, to make sure that the client is owning the technology, and rather than we are just doing a top-down, it is coming from a demand-driven process.
Furthermore, different farmers and processors can have different preferences depending on the social, economic, and cultural context they are working in. Because Tricot engages many individual farmers, it is able to distinguish these differences. This is important as public breeding, contrary to commercial breeding, has the specific objective to create social impact and particularly benefit the underprivileged social groups. Impact in the 5 impact areas identified by the CGIAR is central to all CGIAR activities, including breeding. Gender, youth, and social inclusion, as well as poverty reduction, livelihoods, and jobs are 2 of these areas. Tricot can help in providing donors and breeders with investment cases in where to invest to achieve the highest adoption and social impact.
This can help optimize resource allocation and increase the likelihood of developing successful varieties.
The Tricot approach is supported by an online data and data analysis platform, making sure all the data are systematically stored and accessible to breeders so that they can analyze them together with their other data. This is a big difference from the former practice where on farm evaluation, data were not centrally stored, often only represented specific localities and thus did not well represent the crop users, and data were therefore not well integrated in breeders' analysis.
The breeding process is a long process, so we start by making crosses and generating a lot of variability, and we take these early generation materials, which are in their tens of thousands, and we put them through several stages and years of testing. And at the end of all this testing process, we end up with a handful of maybe 10 to 20 elite varieties. And this is where Tricot comes in, because we want to know among these 10 to 20 varieties which one we should release and which one really has the characteristics that the farmers prefer. And that's how we have been collaborating with the Tricot team to help us screen our germplasm for 2 reasons. Number 1 is, first of all, to understand the trait preferences. By that I mean we want to know what are the main drivers, what are the main characteristics that makes farmer select one variety over another one. And the Tricot, because of its simplicity in the evaluation process, we get a real-time feedback from the farmers on what are the key traits that they are mostly interested in, from when the plants are young, like these ones, to the time that they harvest and they look at the yield, to the time that they process the roots and assess the quality of those roots. But secondly, Tricot helps us to identify which among those dozens or so late-stage selection materials are the ones that are suitable for recommendation for release. I'm very happy with this Tricot method, and I think it's going to help us to really release improved clones that address the needs of the growers, the needs of the processors, and the needs of the consumers.
I support it. However, we want it to be sharp, robust, something that we can count on, and our data can be compared to other data brought from elsewhere. We're all loading our data on Cassava base. In future, it will be on EBS, and that means one CG, anybody elsewhere can take the data and make sure that what we are saying really has value and makes sense.
Furthermore, Tricot data can also be analyzed together with online available climate data to explain the variance in the preferences of farmers and processors.
Also, with Tricot, we have these locations, being captured also. So with that, the issue of climate information is also contained in Tricot, and it will be easy to now integrate it in the breeding database. At the end of the day, we'll have demand-driven products.
To well represent the preferences of farmers and processors, it is necessary to have a good method in place on how to select the participants. Tricot is a citizen science approach, meaning that participants are not mere respondents, but are partners in the breeding process of developing a new variety. They are therefore considered citizen scientists that are well informed about the purpose of the evaluation, identifying varieties that are suitable and favorable to use under the livelihood conditions faced by farmers and processors. The network of Tricot farmers is a platform for learning and sharing.
I didn't know how to check my cassava, if the peel of this one is harder than the other one. During the time of grating, if this one is watery than the other one. The only thing I knew was just to peel the cassava like that, just grate it and keep on processing like that. Now it has taught me a lot. It has created a very big impact in me.
To ensure that participants represent the diverse range of farmers and processors within communities, we identify the factors that distinguish individuals in each participating community. This includes recognizing locally relevant social groups, which may be determined by factors such as immigrant status, ethnicity, education, or the extent of involvement in other occupations.
People of all kind of walks of life have the opportunity to join it, and it's not based on if people are well spoken of it, but it's really based on on the expertise within cassava farming, so they can give feedback with concretely reacting to what's been presented in the field, and together as a kind of citizen science, they provide feedback.
Through focus group discussions with local community leaders, we identify these groups and ensure that all relevant segments are represented among the participants, particularly those involved in cultivating and processing the crop, in this case, cassava.
We have one key strategy that we are implementing within the Tricot project, which is to ensure gender equality and social inclusion in the selection of Tricot participants. So we are quite intentional about selecting men and women farmers, processors, who have several years of experience in farming, processing, and marketing of cassava products. And apart from that, we also consider social factors like ethnicity, we consider migrants. So we tell them as long as they are interested and they can evaluate their expertise also in cassava farming, then we engage them as well.
Considering that certain tasks related to cassava are often gender-specific, with women primarily dominating processing and marketing activities, we place additional emphasis on gender dynamics, given that those involved in processing play a crucial role in evaluating the 3 varieties in the Tricot trial. It's important to ensure that individuals engaged in this processing, particularly women, are the ones evaluating. To address the gender aspect, we are enhancing the Tricot method by involving an additional second person from each participant's household. In most cases, both a man and a woman will independently assess each Tricot trial, covering the entire process from planting to processing into food products. Furthermore, we carry out some qualitative research to understand why men and women have different variety preferences. We see that this is often related to the different work they do, so having information related to the working conditions of both men and women is crucial to make sure breeders finally select a variety that takes into account the preferences of both men and women. Women dominate cassava processing, and many men sell to these processors, so women often set the quality standards for processing and marketing of the processed food, which makes evaluation of post-harvest processing with women extra important.
I like vigorous plant. I'm talking about the stem now, because if I have vigorous plant, I will sell the stem. That's where I will start making my first money. Number two, I like high-yielding variety. Those ones that the root will be big, not tiny root, because big root move market. So I would like the one that I will get big roots so that I will make too much of self. Then number three, I would like those ones that are white, pure white, so that I will not have segregation in the market if I'm taking it to the market to sell. Fufu processors will want to buy from me. Garri processors will also want to buy from me. Then I would like the one that does not have too much of water. Emphasis, too much of water.
This research also enables us to pinpoint challenges that can be tackled through breeding of improved varieties and distinguishes challenges requiring attention from other domains such as agronomy, mechanization, or policies, which again can reinforce the potential impact of new varieties. Through the Gates-funded 1,000 Farms project, Tricot is currently promoted as an improved way of doing on-farm testing for variety release. This is the on-farm testing needed to be able to officially release a variety in a country. In Nigeria, the Variety Release Committee is currently part of the Collaborative Seed Program, a project funded by the Dutch government that focuses on improving and updating variety release procedures in Nigeria. Here, Tricot is promoted as an improved way to do the on-farm testing to acquire the data necessary to back up the release of a variety.
With the funding we get from Gates Foundation, we've been able to move the Tricot to a bigger level, extending to other states, and we also hope to expand it now that the Varietal Release Committee is interested in Tricot. In fact, that is our biggest gain in Tricot, because Varietal Release Committee now have adopted Tricot as an alternative to on-farm trials.
We use the management consulting perspective, strategic thinking in designing our projects and implementing our programs as well. And that's where the Collaborative Seed Program comes in. It's a program that is designed to transform the Nigerian seed sector. We started off by developing a seed roadmap where we engaged the critical stakeholders in Nigeria to identify a vision for where the Nigerian seed system should be. So following that, we then elaborated 22 innovation pathways, how to get to those visions. And variety release is one of the pathways that was identified and agreed by stakeholders. And the Variety Release Committee is how we got involved with Tricot. One of the challenges that Tricot solves for us is that we realize that during variety release that there are lots of technology. People have partners like IITA have invested in developing quality seeds of improved varieties, but they are not in the hands of farmers. So how Tricot helps us is that if you bring in farmers in the process of developing the varieties, they already know. So once you finish with the release of that variety, farmers are already demanding for it. So Tricot helps you to bring many farmers, and then when you give them 3 varieties each and they rank the best and the worst, you can quickly see which varieties that farmers love across those multiple samples.
Within the Collaborative Seed Program, and in cooperation with the joint Cassava breeding units of IITA and the National Root Crops Research Institute, NRCRI, the Nigerian Variety Release Committee is currently piloting Tricot as an improved method for on-farm testing in the variety release process.
We are on the field currently, Variety Release Committee, in collaboration with Sahel Consulting and IITA Tricot team. So we are doing this under the Project Collaborative Seed Program, a Netherlands-Nigeria Partnership Program. So we are on the field currently conducting the trials on Tricot. I think we have passed the stage of multi-location trials, so we are on the field for Tricot in different locations now with farmers. Tricot is very, very important when it comes to variety release and breeding programs in Nigeria. First of all, I want to say some of the challenges we face in variety release. Each time we meet and we release new varieties, this issue always comes up, that how is the adoption rate of the varieties that have been released, and are they actually on the farmers' field? Are these varieties reaching farmers? We discovered that using Tricots will be a very nice, a very good way of reaching more farmers, and that means that farmers will be able to have access to different choices that can mitigate the effects of climate change. And in terms of socio-economics, we all know that gender plays an important role in agriculture. With Tricot, we will be able to know what guides the adoption based on gender. What are the traits that women are looking for? What are the traits that men are looking for? For example, women look at what are the varieties that I can cook very faster, how is the taste, the texture, and some other things like that. While men look at, is it high yielding? Can it bring more money to my pockets? And the number of farmers that will have access to this material will be increased with Tricot, because Tricots engage more farmers than on-farm practice that we currently use. And what I will say is that apart from cassava, let us do more workshop, more advocacy workshop, promotional workshop, so that we can extend it to other crops, and a lot of people will know about it and they will understand it.
Donors stress that breeding should assess the genetic gain within farmers' fields rather than only within the breeding program's breeding trials. The systematic collection of Tricot data and integration of the online Tricot analysis platform, CliMob, with that of breeders like Breedbase, will make it possible to calculate this genetic gain. Apart from using the Tricot approach to set up trials in farmers' individual fields, Tricot can also be applied to testing of food products with consumers as practiced in food science. Here, varieties are grown in a central trial, after which they are processed centrally into food products. After that, the total number of varieties are also randomized so that each consumer gets to evaluate only 3 varieties. This is simpler Tricot evaluation, as evaluation is only done once, contrary to the field trials that are evaluated at different moments from planting to the processing into food products. The advantage of using Tricot instead of the conventional food science consumer testing is that consumers will not be charged with testing all the varieties, and thus more varieties can be evaluated at once. Also, consumers do not have to indicate how much they like the sample on a scale of 1 to 9 as is done during traditional food science consumer testing. Consumers compare the food products from the 3 varieties and indicate which one they like best and which one they like least. This is also done with regards to some traits like color and texture of the food, which are known to be of crucial importance to the consumers.